In an almost empty office, Tamachi is still working at his computer when someone suddenly calls his name. It is Sasaki-san, who gently praises his hard work. Hearing the compliment, Tamachi jokes that if it's true, they should raise his paycheck. Sasaki simply replies that he can't. Everyone knows Tamachi only keeps this job to avoid taking on other responsibilities. Embarrassed by the truth, he tells his boss not to say things like that. Sasaki adds that Tamachi could achieve much more if he really tried, but our guy ignores him and decides to leave since it's already evening. After leaving the office, he goes to an old friend's bar for a drink. The bartender, Gami, greets him with a warm smile and remarks that engineers seem to have exhausting jobs. Tamachi replies that it's not the case. He actually feels confident working at his office. He adds, half-jokingly, that he looks handsome, just by taking care of himself since everyone else there looks so old. Gami laughs and points out that Tamachi worries about his looks even though he isn't dating anyone. Hearing that makes Tamachi realize the sad truth of his life, but he insists he's saving himself for later and wants to be with someone who's still pure. Gami is impressed by his conviction. Their conversation ends when a few customers enter the bar and greet Gami with a bright smile. As Gami tends to them, Tamachi sits quietly, thinking about how no one knows that Gami used to be a guy back in high school. His thoughts drift to the idea that he will probably never be in a relationship. Since he doesn't like working either, spending time drinking at his childhood friend's bar feels like the easiest way to pass the time. He snaps out of his thoughts when he receives a message from a gaming friend asking to meet offline for the first time. Confused, Tamachi asks why so suddenly. His friend explains that they had an argument with their parents about their future and are now running away from home. Still puzzled, Tamachi asks if they live in Sapporo, and the person replies that they are running away from there. Concerned, Tamachi asks if they have anyone they can rely on in real life. Annoyed, the friend replies that a shut-in like me doesn't have any. Then, out of nowhere, they ask whether Tamachi wants to hire a home security guard. The message shocks him. Renafalt is someone he has known for almost 5 years through gaming, always like an adorable junior who calls him Senpai. Although Tamachi has no problem helping, the sudden situation makes him uneasy. Just then, another message arrives. His friend claims to be a beautiful and innocent high school girl. Without thinking, Tamachi replies that he will come to help. His friend laughs and sends another message, saying she's already at the station and carrying a red bag. Tamachi quickly leaves the bar, telling Gami he's going to meet a friend. On the way to the station, he keeps thinking about how unlikely it is that his online friend could really be a beautiful girl. He guesses it's probably an adult, or maybe even a guy, but he still feels a twinge of excitement. He recalls how 5 years ago, his online friend Raina started gaming after being drawn in by an ad. Back then, she had accidentally attacked his character in-game, marking their first interaction. Since then, Raina had kept playing, calling him Senpai as he taught her about the game. They spent countless hours together, which might be one reason her parents disapproved of her choices. When Tamachi arrives at the station, he scans the crowd for a girl with a red carry-on bag. He spots one girl and is momentarily captivated by her beauty, but he quickly shakes off the thought that she could be Raina and turns to leave. Suddenly, the girl grabs his jacket. When he turns around, he sees tears in her eyes as she nervously says that she is, in fact, Raina. Tamachi has a hard time believing that she is truly his online friend and worries that he might be getting pranked. Once he confirms that she is indeed Raina, he leads her toward his house, all the while thinking about how strange it might look for an adult man to bring a young girl home. Throughout the walk, he keeps trying to come up with a reasonable plan, but cannot think of anything suitable. As they stand at his door, he asks if she really wants to live with him, since his house is known for tragic incidents. He tells her about all the tragedies that have happened in his house, including a mass cult suicide, and says that if she is scared, she can still go back home. To his surprise, Raina simply says that it is still better compared to her own house. Tamachi becomes more concerned when he notices how she is trembling, so instead of arguing further, he just lets her inside. He keeps talking about how this house still has a rent of 40,000 yen, even though it is a bit secluded. It is because of all those tragic incidents that he gets to live in such a suitable environment, so he can only be grateful for them. Raina looks around, a bit worried about the incidents, and seeing the strange figurines, she asks if his house is actually safe. Tamachi casually replies that the priest who exorcised the house told him not to worry about the situation. After hearing that, Raina prays to his figurines. Then the conversation shifts to what Tamachi had been intending to discuss. Seeing how she is struggling to get her words out, Tamachi asks if she feels nervous talking face to face. When she agrees, he suggests that she can open her computer and talk to him instead. After logging into the game, Reina quickly sends him a message saying that he is alive, which surprises Tamachi, as she seems much more confident speaking online. Reina replies that she already mentioned being an introvert in real life. Then she finally apologizes for shocking him and manipulating him by saying that she was a beautiful high school girl with a seductive body, because now he can see she is nothing like that. Tamachi is surprised to hear that she feels bad about it, but still curious if the part about her being pure is true. Reina replies that she actually is untouched, which makes him feel a bit relieved. Tamachi admits that it was also a shock for him to meet her face to face. Reina is still concerned about bothering him like this, and offers to help him in different ways, but Tamachi refuses, saying that he can take care of himself just fine. Still, she feels guilty and states that she can't live here without doing something for him in return. She tells him she is ready to do whatever he asks, but Tamachi scolds her for thinking that way. He then asks who he is to her, and when she replies that he is her senpai, Tamachi asks if she really thinks her senior is someone who would exploit a young girl. He is relieved when Reina replies that she knows her senpai is not like that. The next day, after work, Tamachi goes to his usual place and shares the events of the previous night. Seeing her confused expression, he repeats that his online friend, Reina, is actually a beautiful young girl who ran away from her house and is now staying with him. Hearing this strange story, Gami suddenly bursts out laughing and congratulates Tamachi, saying that he is finally growing up. She opens a liquor bottle and drinks directly from it, ignoring Tamachi's warning that her place is going to open soon. Instead, she flips the notice that the bar will be closed today and grabs Tamachi, insisting that he tell her everything about the girl. Tamachi softly replies that he is not planning to do anything with her for now because he has a high respect for people with good hearts. Gami doesn't believe his words, knowing that this kind of behavior doesn't suit him. Her words shock him when she says that this must be the reason he is still a virgin. When Tamachi asks what she means, Gami sits on a stool and declares that it is a big change because he never agrees to deal with troublesome things. Tamachi simply replies that something is bothering him, which brings back a flashback from the night before. Earlier, when he asks Reina what she thinks after meeting him, she says he has a really good personality. When he presses her about his appearance, she admits she's relieved he isn't a cringy otaku and that he's actually a handsome working man. Seeing her finally speak freely, Tamachi feels relieved and asks why she decided to run away from home. Reina explains that she had been talking with her parents about her future but lost the argument. Tamachi can't believe that's the reason she left home to trust a stranger instead. When he pushes for the truth, Reina admits she's very antisocial, afraid of people, and tends to stutter. Even so, her father forces her to attend school, which she hates. Tamachi asks if she chose to stay home instead of going to school, thinking that might be why her parents are angry. Reina agrees and adds that she felt especially discouraged after attending her high school entrance ceremony last month. When Tamachi hears she just entered high school, he quickly does the math and realizes she was only in 5th grade when they first met online. Reina says that's why she appreciates his help and feels she's grown a lot since then. While talking, Tamachi's mind keeps wandering, but he scolds himself and asks why, after several months, she still hasn't adjusted to high school. He jokes that it must be a low-level school. Annoyed, Reina insists she got into a top-ranked high school, always scored well in middle school, and even achieved a perfect score on her entrance exam. She adds that she studies in her free time, so academics are never a problem. She claims to be a genius, but failing to attend school properly only made them angrier. Reina says she's actually a genius, but failing to get into the school her parents wanted only made them angrier. They're planning to marry her off to a wealthy man once she reaches legal age, and knowing they're serious about it, her life has become completely miserable. Hearing her story, Tamachi asks about the test that holds the same equivalency as high school. Reina replies that since she belongs to a semi-elite family, they dislike the idea of her attending such schools. It makes Tamachi curious about why she can't simply stay in the nurse's office during classes, to which she replies that her parents wouldn't allow her to choose any of those options. Since she can't make any more excuses, she decides to run away so they might leave her alone for a while. Tamachi doesn't believe that this will happen because it is obvious her parents will be worried since she ran away from home. Reina calmly replies that this won't be the case because she left a note saying she would be staying with her sister in Tokyo. Shocked, Tamachi reminds her that she said she wanted to stay with him because she didn't have anyone else. Reina simply explains that she does this as a precaution because her real goal is to meet him in person. Reina simply explains that she did this as a precaution because her real goal was to meet him in person. Still confused, Tamachi tells her that she should go to her sister's place, but Reina refuses, saying that he is the only person she feels comfortable relying on. Tamachi mentions that her sister might be more kind-hearted than he is, to which Rina surprisingly agrees, saying that her sister cares about her a lot but is not a very gentle person. Reina knows that her sister would try to make her face reality with harsh words because that is simply how people live. She says her sister might even force her to eat food she is allergic to, just to make her get used to it. Even though Rina understands that her actions are not good, she admits she doesn't dare to face everything. Nervously, she says that it feels like her life is already over. Tamachi is confused by her story because he knows Reina has chosen to risk everything to stay and has contacted him instead of anyone else. He realizes that if he doesn't let her stay, she will likely be returned to her family and might end up being sold off to some elite household. Just then, he receives another message from Reina saying that she plans to run away from reality with him by her side, but now it feels like she is only being a burden to others. After carefully thinking about the situation, Tamachi realizes that he cannot save Reina from the harshness of reality, but he can at least help her look away from it for a while. As he recalls the entire story to his friend Gami, she simply remarks that Tamachi, who never wants to take responsibility for anything, is now willingly helping a girl by giving her a place to stay. Tamachi quickly replies that he was planning to refuse, but eventually remembered a boy from his high school. That boy had no place to escape from his reality and ended up giving himself a very tragic end. If Rina were to do something like that, Tamachi knows he would feel terrible for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Gami mentions that he is just overreacting, but Tamachi explains that Reina has been an introvert since elementary school and is someone who becomes extremely nervous in any social situation. If a person like her has come all the way to him and is asking to be taken care of, then it means she must be struggling deeply. Hearing that, Gami also agrees that someone like Reina must be going through a lot. This entire situation makes Tamachi more determined, and he declares that Reina can stay with him as long as she wants because he understands what it feels like to not want to go home. Still, he tells her that she has to keep this a secret. In response, Reina says that instead of exposing him, she would be ready to take down her whole family. Hearing about Reina's reply, Gami tells him that he is dealing with a very dangerous person. Still, Tamachi argues that he isn't doing this for free since Reina will be handling all the housework, which feels like a bonus. Gami stops arguing and says she'll look after him, even though he never asked for help. She understands his intentions, but points out that, having never been with a woman, he knows nothing about a woman's needs. She adds that if a socially awkward man and a virgin like him live with a girl, there will definitely be problems. Gami explains that since she transitioned from a man to a woman, she understands how complicated such situations can be. After spending nearly 4 hours at the bar, Tamachi finally returns home. He feels a little happy because Gami offers him free drinks if he keeps telling her everything in detail. When he reaches his door, Reina peeks out and softly welcomes him back. He freezes in place, realizing it has been almost 10 years since he last heard someone say those words to him. After saying goodnight to Tamachi, Reina sits in her room, thinking how surprising it is that he accepted her without any argument. As she drifts towards sleep, she replays the events she has faced recently. Almost a month ago, she attended a high school orientation ceremony and had a really hard time sitting in the crowd. Ever since childhood, Fumino Kaide never attended school properly. During elementary school, she completely shut herself away, yet despite that, she is still considered a genius. The only time she went to school was to take tests in the infirmary, where she always achieved the highest scores. Even though she never attended classes, her father was pleased with her achievements, so she believed it would be fine to avoid high school altogether. When she comes of age, however, her father forces her to join high school, insisting that attending online classes or taking an equivalent test is not acceptable. Being compelled to attend makes her feel bullied, though she finds some relief in the fact that the school is preparatory and there are almost no extracurricular activities. For a while, she hopes high school life will be easy, but it does not work out. Interacting with classmates becomes nearly torture. Whenever someone tries to engage her, she becomes terrified. Even former elementary classmates approaching her make the social world feel frightening. One day, while she is sitting in her room, a maid asks if she is all right because she did not return to school after the orientation. The maid states that her friends are worried about her, but Reina simply instructs her to send them back. Her curt answer enrages her father, and he declares that if she refuses to attend school, she must help him in another way. He plans to marry her into an elite family. Hearing this, Reina begins to plan how to escape this hell. Her first thought is to turn to her sister, who has always protected her from their father, but she dismisses the idea, knowing her sister would only force her back to school. Trapped and desperate, she even fantasizes about becoming an invincible villain who destroys everything, briefly researching how to make a pressure cooker bomb. But instead of acting on those dark thoughts, she decides to meet her senpai and leaves a note at home. As she prepares to go, she tells herself that if he refuses to meet her, she'll head to her sister's place instead. If he agrees to help, she can escape reality for a little while. Her urge to run away is so strong that she stops thinking about the future. It surprises her that she's willing to rely on someone she has never met in real life. She finally leaves the house and heads to the train station, interacting with everyone only through her phone. Even something as simple as buying coffee feels difficult. Sitting in a small cafe, she already feels exhausted. After a while, she opens her laptop, knowing that on Fridays, Senpai always visits his friend's bar. She writes him a message but is too nervous to send it. For almost 20 minutes, she just stares at the screen, frozen in hesitation. Then, a man passing behind her bumps into her hand, causing her finger to hit the key and send the message. Realizing what happened, she panics, afraid he will think her message is strange. When Tamachi replies, she quickly switches into her gaming persona, using humor to ease the tension. After chatting for a bit, she worries that he might think it's odd to help someone who has run away from home. To avoid that, she cleverly plays with his psychology, claiming to be a beautiful college girl. Her plan works. Tamachi seems delighted by her words, and for the first time in a long while, she feels a sense of lightness. Since her mother's death, Tamachi has been the only person kind to her, and she begins to wish she could live as her gaming character forever. When she later waits for him at the station, she knows she is heading toward an adult's place, but even that seems better than being forced into marriage with some elite family. Then she suddenly starts to worry about his appearance, realizing she has no idea what he looks like. As she silently prays for him to be a good person, Tamachi finally appears. She recognizes him right away by his clothes, which match the photo he sent earlier, and feels relieved to see that he's actually quite handsome. Reina wakes up in bed, recalling everything that has happened. It takes her a moment to realize she's at Tamachi's place and that he agreed to let her stay. She remembers his promise not to do anything to her, though she still feels he has the right to ask for her help however he wants. What surprises her most is how connected he seems to feel with her and how respectfully he treats her. Sitting on her knees, she leans gently against the window, thinking about Tamachi on the other side of the door. As she listens quietly, she accidentally pushes it, making it creak. Hearing the sound, Tamachi turns toward her and greets her with a cheerful "good morning." Reina can't bring herself to reply. She stands frozen as he looks at her, his expression softening as he thanks her, understanding her situation. Flustered, Reina quickly shuts the door, realizing at that moment that Tamachi isn't the hero of some romantic comedy. Afterward, Tamachi hands her a gift key for becoming a home guardian and explains that since she lost her smartphone, he bought her a new one so she can communicate properly. Reina happily accepts the phone and types her thanks, but he suggests she try speaking in her own voice for simple sentences. He explains that the vocal cords are muscles and that if she uses them, she will eventually be able to speak properly. Reina is surprised to hear this, while Tamachi changes the topic, asking if she is allergic to anything because he is going to cook. At first, she only shakes her head, but when he keeps watching, she manages to say nothing. Tamachi praises her for trying and starts searching the fridge for ingredients. Reina slowly grabs his shirt and says she will try to cook for him. Seeing how she holds the knife, Tamachi stops her and asks if she has ever cooked for herself. Reina replies that the servants always cook for her, so instead of letting her do the work, Tamachi takes the lead and shows her how to cut the vegetables. He is pleased when Reina praises his cooking skills and explains how he has prepared meals for himself since middle school. With a big smile, he lets her taste his homemade food and then goes back to cooking. When he is about to cut the onions again, she pushes him aside. Tamachi worries about how she is holding the knife and quickly moves to help, gently guiding her on how to cut the onions properly. Reina's eyes begin to tear, and as she reaches to rub them, Tamachi stops her, saying they will sting more if she rubs them. After a few more cuts, she starts crying. Instead of continuing the cooking, Tamachi suggests they rest for a while and prepares coffee for both of them. While they sit around the table, Tamachi asks if she is afraid of knives. Reina admits that whenever she holds a knife, she thinks about harming people, and it pains her that her first victim is an onion. Tamachi doesn't understand at first, and the confusion makes Reina realize she never told him about her plan. When he finally learns what she's thinking, Tamachi casually remarks that knives are an inefficient method. He adds that she seems like the type who would count kills as victories and try to become truly invincible. Rina can't believe how accurately he sees through her twisted thoughts, and even more that he's still willing to give her shelter. The surprise fills her with sudden energy. She quickly finishes her coffee, stands up, and feels determined to finally do something right. After some effort, she finally manages to prepare a meal, but feels discouraged to see how messy it looks. Tamachi does not point that out and instead encourages her, saying it is good for a first attempt and tastes quite nice. He even asks her to try her own food. After taking a bite, she realizes she made some mistakes while preparing it, but surprisingly, it still tastes great. Slowly, she understands that the food might taste better because she is not eating alone. Once they finish eating, Tamachi explains that they have to take care of their daily meals and weekly cleaning, but there are many other tasks to manage as well. Still focused on food, he asks if she knows what the most important mission is when preparing it. She listens attentively as he points out that if they try to be lazy, they will just suffer because it is the most difficult mission. That is why he is assigning it to the house guardian. Reina feels happy to hear this and excitedly helps him with the dishwashing and laundry, considering it a part of her mission. Later, as she sits in her room folding her clothes, Tamachi suddenly asks why she is so beautiful. He adds that he knows introverted people usually do not care about others' opinions, but he has noticed how she always takes good care of her appearance. Rina types her reply, explaining that it is because she does not want her Nissan to get angry. Whenever she ignores her appearance, her sister scolds her, being the one who taught her how to take care of herself. Hearing about her sister, Tamachi comments that it seems she was very caring toward her. Rina continues the conversation, typing that people are always asked whether they prefer a beautiful woman with a bad attitude or an angry woman with good behavior. She adds that she is sure an angry man must have come up with this question. Tamachi agrees and replies that the correct answer should be a beautiful woman with good behavior. He continues, saying that society is still very troublesome and overly focused on beauty because even he would have been affected if she were a man instead of a girl. He admits he would never have accepted her into his house, and they would have just remained distant acquaintances, adding that it would have been the same for her if he were an older man. Reina agrees, typing that she would have lost her spirit to do better if that were the case. Tamachi returns to their earlier topic, saying he is sure her sister taught her to take care of herself even when she does not feel like it. Once she confirms that her sister almost forced her to stay well-groomed, Tamachi says he cannot be like her sister, and wants Reina to take responsibility for herself. Listening quietly, she lies on the floor while Tamachi falls silent for a moment. Then she hears a bit of rustling. Carefully opening the door, she sees him by the entrance, saying goodbye and mentioning that he is going out for a bit. He assures her that he is only going to Gami's bar since he had to leave early yesterday because of her. A little worried, she asks if he really plans to leave a young girl alone in his haunted-looking house. Smiling, he replies that as the house guardian, it should be easy for her. He startles her the most by saying that he is about to share some confidential information with her. He explains that everything began when a family committed suicide in this very house. After that, several tragic incidents followed, and the total number of deaths eventually reached 40, with every victim dying on the second floor. Hearing this, Reina becomes completely shocked because he had previously told her to dry the laundry upstairs. She even calls him heartless for making her do something like that. Tamachi just playfully replies that he is looking forward to seeing how she handles the situation. He repeats that he will only be at the bar to discuss her and will return soon. Hearing this, Reina quickly asks if his friend will be okay with such a situation. Tamachi replies that Gami never talks about others and says he'll explain everything to her since her help could be useful. He even throws in a playful comment, and when Reina gets annoyed by it, he quickly leaves the house. Before stepping out, he tells her that she will be fine as long as she shows respect to the house. As he closes the door behind him, the force causes a nearby table to fall over, giving Reina almost a mini heart attack. She lies on the floor for a while, trying to calm herself down, but eventually gathers her courage, deciding that she needs to change her mindset. She reminds herself that no matter what stories are connected to this place, Senpai has been living here for almost 5 years. So she decides to follow his instructions and pay proper respect to the house. With that thought, she gets up and looks around the place, recalling how Senpai mentioned that anyone who visits this house can sense a strange presence. This makes her realize that such rumors might actually be in her favor. She convinces herself that the house is protecting her in some way, so she bows to the figurines, promising to keep the house clean and in order. She is not concerned about what happens to the neighbors. She only wishes to stay safe herself. As she is praying, a sudden noise from outside startles her badly. Turning around, she realizes it is just a cat, but the scare leaves her trembling. Overwhelmed, she sits down on the floor, almost in tears, waiting anxiously for Senpai to return home. The scene shifts to Tamachi being welcomed home from work by Rina with a big smile. She has prepared both dinner and a bath for him. He chooses to freshen up first, and when he comes out, his clothes are already neatly set up on the chair. Rina has also prepared a delicious meal for him. She is eager to know his opinion as he sits at the table. He almost gets frustrated, saying that she is going to spoil him completely. It has been almost 2 months since Reina came to his house, and since then, he has been free from all kinds of housework. Now he is worried that he might get too used to her presence. After dinner, they both sit in front of their PCS, ready to play their game. In the game, they cooperate very well, and Reina speaks confidently, guiding and helping him while they fight enemies together. She is very skillful, quickly defeating the opponents, and they end up winning the match. They both cheer happily, high-fiving each other after finishing the final round. At that moment, Tamachi asks Reina if she has noticed something and points out how, whenever she is focused on playing games, she does not stutter at all. He believes that if she can do that, it means her speech problems are connected to her feelings. Instead of discussing it further, he simply asks if she wants to play another round, and she happily agrees. One afternoon, Tamachi is heading back from somewhere, feeling exhausted because of the heat. He decides to take a short break at a cafe, ordering an iced coffee to cool himself down. As he sits there, he feels a bit worried about Reina staying at home, but still decides to rest for a while. While he is sipping his coffee, a young girl named Kurumi approaches him, saying how it is a coincidence to meet him at a place like this. She sits on the chair beside him and asks what he is doing today. Tamachi replies that his housemate's mouse is broken, so he came here to buy a new one. He does not mention that Reina broke it in anger while playing a game, and instead says how this is the first time they are meeting outside of Gami's bar. Kurumi corrects him, saying this is their first time meeting since their encounter at the bar. After a short silence, she mentions that it's nice to see him in casual clothes instead of his usual suit. Tamachi asks if it really matters, since someone like her must look good in anything. Kurumi quickly denies it, then realizes her tone and apologizes for shouting. She returns to her coffee while Tamachi watches her for a moment, before commenting that she looks very mature when she isn't drunk. Kurumi is a college student he often meets at Gami's bar. Knowing she came from Sapporo, Tamachi asks how she's finding her first summer in Tokyo. Kurumi responds it's unbearably hot, and he agrees, mentioning he's also from Hokkaido. Surprised, she asks if he has any connection to Sapporo, which he denies, though he briefly thinks about how Reina came from there too. Just then, Kurumi suddenly asks his opinion about destiny. Seeing his confused expression, she explains that it is something troubling her, because she has always been involved in love affairs that turn out dramatic. It means that she is suffering in her love life. Hearing that, Tama realizes that it means she falls for people very quickly, and comments that if she has feelings for someone, that person must feel quite special. Hearing that, Kurumi nervously admits that she has fallen for someone right now, because every time they meet, it feels like destiny to her. However, to her disappointment, the guy never seems to notice her, no matter how much she tries to charm him. Tamachi comments that he cannot believe that a person like that even exists. Kurumi continues, saying that she never noticed her feelings before because that person always motivated her, but now she is trying to show him her charms. She adds that her bestie once told her that before getting into a relationship with someone, she should attract the guy through her cuteness. Tamachi chuckles at her words, saying that she must be very aware of her appearance. Kurumi does not respond to that and instead asks if he also likes women who are confident in themselves. Tamachi replies that he actually prefers self-aware women over those who are not, and do not care much about themselves. His reply seems to satisfy Kurumi, as she mentions that she found his love and will follow her friend's advice instead of wasting her efforts. Tamachi hopes her love works out for her this time. Kurumi explains that she was supposed to meet her friend there. Tamachi replies that he should head home, but before he can leave, Kurumi quickly insists that he meet her friend first. He declines with a polite smile, suggesting she can simply mention him later. After a brief goodbye, he steps out of the cafe, realizing how careless he's been. He lingered far too long, and Reina is probably upset with him by now. As he exits, a girl catches his attention. He recognizes her as Kurumi's best friend, the one from Sapporo, but when he looks closer, he's struck by how much she resembles an older version of Reina. The resemblance reminds him that Reina once mentioned having an older sister who lives in Tokyo. Still, he shakes off the thought, refusing to believe such a coincidence could be real. At the university, a young boy declares his love to Kurumi-san, but she instantly rejects him, explaining that she is going to visit the person's house whom she actually likes. Kinomiya Madoka, a university student, has developed feelings for Tama-san, a working man almost 7 years older than her. Even though she knows her emotions may be developing too quickly, she accepts them, confident in her own charm. Until now, she has always ended up with the person she likes. But Tamachi feels different. He hasn't even shared his contact information with her. This leaves her unusually uneasy. It is the first time her charm seems to fail. She arrives at Tamachi's horror house, cautiously walking along the wall. She keeps murmuring to herself that she is not a stalker, and that she only found this house while searching for haunted places in the area. Despite her careful movements, she accidentally knocks down a pot, breaking it in the process. Realizing her mistake, she quickly hides behind the wall just as an elderly lady comes out of the house. Instead of being alarmed, the old lady casually remarks that this must be the effect of the house's curse. Hearing that, Kurumi starts to feel uneasy about having entered the place, but she remains determined as she stares at the door from where Tama-san comes out every day. Knowing that breaking into the house would be a crime, she decides to just take a peek. Bending down, she looks carefully through the doorknob and catches a glimpse of someone inside. She knows that Tamachi should be at work at this hour. This reminds her of what he once mentioned the house's tragedies, but it would be fine as long as he paid respect to the house. He even warned her that anyone who tried to break in would face misfortune. Remembering this, Kurumi becomes frightened and quickly closes the vault, whispering to herself that she did not see anything. Inside, Reina notices someone peeking and grows worried, thinking it might be a burglar. She also considers the possibility that it could be someone who simply wants to visit the house. As an introvert who struggles to talk properly, she finds the idea of confronting a burglar terrifying. She wonders if the person outside knows about the horror stories connected to this place, and decides to try and scare them away. For a brief moment, she also worries because she has to keep her presence hidden from everyone else. Carefully, she peeks around the wall to check if the person has already left. Outside, Kurumi hears a sudden noise that startles her, but she quickly relaxes when she sees that it is just a cat. Still, she feels uneasy when the black cat keeps staring at her, before walking away in a strange manner. This oddly motivates her, and she decides to peek through the window, though she can hardly see anything clearly. Just as she leans closer to look inside, Reina's eyes suddenly appear in view, terrifying her so much that she screams and runs away from the house. Inside, Reina sighs in relief, realizing that it was just a woman. From the house, Kurumi goes straight to a cafe and orders a large serving of fries. She is still deeply unsettled, her hands trembling as she eats. Her mind keeps replaying the moment she peeked inside Tamachi's house, recalling the strange atmosphere and the figure she thought she saw. When a creepy old woman bumps into her and teases her for sitting alone, Kurumi ignores her, too absorbed in fear over the house's mysterious accidents and deaths. The tension overwhelms her and she starts crying in the middle of the cafe. Later that night, Tamachi returns home and is surprised when Reina tells him about an intruder trying to peek into the house. She explains how terrified she felt, and notes that in a normal home, the incident would have been reported to the police. Tamachi listens calmly and replies that since the house is known to be haunted, people often try to sneak a look out of curiosity. He smiles reassuringly, pats Reina's head, and praises her for doing a great job as the house guardian, which helps her relax. At the same time, Kurumi storms into Gami's bar, slamming the door and looking terrified. She immediately asks what happened. After taking a moment to steady herself, Kurumi explains everything but changes the story, claiming her friend went into Tama's horror house to test their courage. She cannot admit that she was the one who trespassed. Gami listens with interest, clearly amused. In a teasing yet serious tone, she points out that Tamachi lives alone, so no one is in the house during the day. She warns that anyone who peeks inside might see things they were never meant to see. Kurumi freezes and Gami continues, noting that the house sometimes shows things not meant for human eyes. Kurumi begins trembling uncontrollably, her face pale with fear. Seeing her reaction, Gami's amusement fades, and she grows slightly worried that she has frightened the girl too much. On a regular workday, Tamachi finishes his tasks earlier than usual and asks his colleague Sasaki to check the completed files. Sasaki is surprised to see everything done so perfectly and ahead of the deadline, joking that Tamachi must have found some secret motivation lately. Tamachi just smiles, feeling a bit proud of himself. When another coworker comes by asking for help with his own workload, Tamachi agrees to assist. Later in the evening, Tamachi goes out for a drink with Sasaki, who is curious about his sudden change in attitude. He asks what has made him so responsible and productive lately. Tamachi can't exactly tell him that he no longer has to do any housework because Reina takes care of everything, so he just casually says that he has started focusing more on his health and avoids drinking before going to bed. Sasaki looks genuinely surprised and laughs, saying how rare it is to hear something like that from him. He adds that since Tamachi has been doing great at work recently, the company is considering raising his salary and even offering him a higher position. As expected, Tamachi immediately refuses, saying he is fine with his current job position and doesn't want to take on unnecessary responsibilities. He explains that right now his only goal is to stay alive until he turns 30. Concerned, Sasaki asks what he plans to do after that, but Tamachi just shrugs and admits that he hasn't thought that far ahead. As they part ways, Sasaki warns him that if he keeps this kind of mindset, he might regret it when he's older. Tamachi just smiles faintly and replies that he will think about it when the time comes, though deep down he feels that he is ready to take on more challenges now than before. After leaving the office, Tamachi heads home noticing how unusually hot it still is despite the sun beginning to set. As he approaches the door, he finds himself looking forward to Reina's cooking, thinking about how much easier life has become since she moved in. But the moment he opens the door, he is hit by an intense wave of heat. Startled, he rushes inside and immediately calls out for Reina. Seeing her sitting quietly, he quickly grabs her shoulders and asks in frustration why she didn't turn on the air conditioner. Without waiting for a response, he snatches the remote and turns it on, muttering how unnecessary it is for her to endure this kind of heat. Reina softly mumbles something about the electricity bill, but Tamachi sharply scolds her, saying that she should prioritize her health instead. He adds that he wouldn't even be able to take her to the hospital if she collapsed from heat stroke. Nervously, Reina apologizes and excuses herself, saying that she needs to cool down for a while. In the bathroom, as she showers, she begins to reflect on his words and realizes that he was right. Tamachi didn't come home just to find her passed out from the heat. Since she is supposed to act as a caretaker in his home, she must take better care of her own health as well. She decides that from now on she will treat using the air conditioner the same way she treats using hot water, carefully, but without guilt. After finishing her shower, she suddenly freezes, realizing that she forgot to bring a towel or clothes. Embarrassed, she wraps herself with her arms and quickly rushes to the washing machine, only to find that all of her used clothes are still soaking inside. Seeing that, she lets out a quiet sigh, feeling both frustrated and flustered at the same time. After carefully assessing the situation, Reina realizes that she needs to get her clothes from the bedroom. However, Tamachi is sitting in the living room, which leaves her with only one option: to run toward the second floor, where she had hung some clothes to dry earlier. She hopes that if everything goes well, this whole situation will remain hidden from Tamachi. But as soon as she reaches the second floor, she is devastated to remember that she has already folded her laundry and put it away. She almost breaks down, feeling frustrated at herself for being so efficient with the chores. With no other option left, she decides to go back downstairs carefully. She peeks inside the living room, hoping that Tamachi will be in his bedroom, so she can quickly run to her room unnoticed. But just as she steps ahead from behind the wall, she bumps straight into Tamachi. He is taken aback to see her wearing only his shirt and can barely control his reaction. A while later, she is sitting on the floor while Tamachi quietly dries her hair. Instead of commenting on what happened, he simply apologizes for scolding her earlier. He admits that he might have said too much, but he also worries about the electricity bill sometimes. He then mentions that all the money she gave him when she first came to live here has been kept safe. He hasn't used it, and won't unless he finds himself in real trouble. After that, he dismisses the serious tone, saying that he feels a bit hungry. Still nervous, Reina apologizes, explaining that she couldn't cook properly because of the heat. Tamachi happily eats the Chinese noodles she made and praises her for being a good home guardian. Suddenly, Reina brings up the police car that came to their area a few days ago. Tamachi doesn't recall much about it since the neighborhood often has incidents like that. Reina explains that the police were there because a whole family had been murdered. This catches Tamachi's attention. He remembers hearing something about it on the news. Reina goes on to say that the culprit was the family's underage son. Intrigued, Tamachi asks for more details, and Reina tells him that the criminal was the second son, who had always been compared to his talented older brother. All his life, his parents scolded him for not being as good. On the day he failed a test, his mother told him she wished he had never been born. Overcome with anger, the boy killed his family in a moment of rage. Later, when he came back to his senses, he realized what he had done. After telling the story, Reina says that she believes it wasn't the boy who was truly to blame. It was the house itself. She explains that the family had moved into that house about 6 months ago and had constant fights ever since. With a faint smile, she adds that now another horror story will be tied to this area. Seeing how strangely cheerful she looks, Tamachi asks what she thinks about human rights. Rina casually replies that she finds such things entertaining. Her excitement grows as she admits that hearing about the incident somehow made the food taste better. After taking another bite, she adds that she understands the boy's feelings because she also had a father like that. This makes Tamachi recall how her father tried to sell her to a rich family. Suddenly, he remembers something and asks why she never mentioned her mother. Raina softly replies that her mother was a great person, and because of her, she feels like a good future is still waiting for her. She slowly continues, saying that after losing her mother, she went down the wrong path. Kaidi had always thought her life was perfect, with a loving and kind mother and a very cool older sister. But everything shattered in an instant. From the day she lost her beloved mother, the bridge that had connected her to the world was gone. After her mother's death, her father hired a housekeeper and quickly returned to work. Her older sister soon started going to school again after the mourning period ended, leaving Reina as the only one still trying to process the grief of losing her mother. The housekeeper her father hired to replace her mother took care of her daily needs, but nothing feels the same. One day, when Kaidi decides to shut herself in her room, her older sister forces her out. It happens almost 4 months after their mother's death. Her sister tells her that she knows how lonely she must feel, gently holding her hand. She tells Kaide that she can't stay like this forever and needs to overcome the grief because their mother is surely watching over them from heaven. Hearing those words, she simply nods in response, which makes her sister smile with relief. Her sister then assures her that she can always share everything with her because they are siblings. After the talk with her sister, she feels that she should try to move on and be more positive about everything. She finally decides to return to school. As soon as she enters the classroom, her friends approach her and comfort her about her mother's death. Hearing her friends' kind words makes her burst into tears, and she stutters as she tries to thank them. Her friends tell her not to speak if it's too hard, but the boys in the class start mocking her stuttering. Seeing what is happening, Kaidi panics and starts sobbing uncontrollably. The girls in the class quickly gather around her. One comforts her while another starts arguing with the boys. Rina can't understand why people treat her like that. That evening, her sister is very worried because she heard that Kaide came home early, but she can't bring herself to talk about what happened at school. Her sister just tells her that she believes Kaide can handle everything, and that since she is a genius, she will be fine. But it's okay to feel sad for now. Kaide doesn't understand why her sister has so much faith in her. From that day onward, she slowly begins to lose her ability to speak properly. Feeling completely detached from the real world, she starts spending most of her time playing games. Sitting in front of Tamachi, she admits that she isn't a good girl like everyone thinks she is and that she can't live up to what society expects from her. He listens quietly, realizing how her sister's faith in her has become more of a burden than comfort. He gently tells her that he understands how she feels. If a child is forced to follow the rules of society too strictly, they eventually start to believe that they can't achieve anything. He subtly adds that he faced a similar situation in his own life. Hearing this, Reina becomes curious and asks about his family. Tamachi explains that both his parents were quite strict and that since childhood, he had always been pressured to follow society standards. Whenever he made even a small mistake, his father beat him, and to avoid further punishment, he started acting like the perfect child. He tried to appear proper and well-mannered on the outside, no matter what he was truly feeling inside. When he entered middle school, his mother became very sick and was admitted to the hospital. Rina feels that it must have been difficult for him, but he admits that it was actually the best time of his life because he could play online games freely. Since his father knew nothing about computers, seeing him type so quickly made him believe that his son was exceptionally smart. During that time, he played games all day and night, to the point where his grades dropped, but he hid it by pretending that he was too worried about his mother's health to study. When his mother eventually passed away, he didn't feel any real sadness. He just kept acting like a grieving son. However, before the mourning period ended, a serious issue occurred. The incense that should have stayed lit for days suddenly went out, making his mother's relatives accuse his father of hating his late wife. After the incident, his father became furious and beat Tamachi again, blaming him for being lazy and careless. That was the moment Tamachi's patience broke. He finally yelled back at his father, shouting at him for always blaming him for everything. His sudden anger shocked his father, who actually seemed afraid of him for the first time. That night, he decided that he wanted to escape that kind of life once and for all. After finishing his story, Tamachi apologizes, saying that his life sounds boring, but Reina disagrees. She finds it rather depressing. She points out that his parents did almost the same thing as her father, but she secretly feels that his situation is worse because it makes him feel worthless. Rina explains that her mother always took good care of her and gave her confidence, which is why losing her was so painful. Tamachi's story makes her realize that he might have never truly experienced love in his life. She quietly notes that in a way he is blessed, and at his confused look she explains that she herself was lucky to have such a kind mother and sister, to be called a genius, and to have grown into a beautiful young woman. But now she feels like her life has turned into a joke. Tamachi is bothered to hear her speak badly about herself. He tells her that her stuttering clearly comes from her mental state. She is aware of her problem but never tries to fix it because she unconsciously expects the surrounding adults to solve it for her. But the only adult who ever gave her advice just told her to go to school. No one actually tried to help her face her struggles. Rina quietly says that she doesn't believe there are any good adults in the world. To her surprise, Tamachi confidently replies that he is an adult and points out that although she struggles to talk with others, she can comfortably speak with him even though they met only a few months ago. He asks if she wants to hear his honest opinion about her problems, but before she can reply, he continues. He asserts that the real issue behind everything is that there were no responsible adults around her to handle the situation, and he can tell that she is not at fault for any of it. Then, changing the topic, he tells her that they should go to sleep. Later that night, as Rina lies in bed, she keeps thinking about his words. For so long, she has blamed herself for not being able to do simple things that everyone else can do. But when Senpai told her that she isn't at fault, she finally felt a small sense of relief. As she slowly drifts to sleep, she admits to herself that she has truly fallen in love with Senpai. Even a short distance between them feels unbearable, and she just wants to stay by his side forever. She knows that this isn't socially acceptable. She is only trying to escape reality, and that makes her feel guilty. No matter how happy she feels now, she knows her older sister would never forgive her for this. So when she prays before the sculptures again, she quietly apologizes to her sister, saying that she doesn't want to stay away from Senpai.
Here I am, know it's been a while.